Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Sue Selle today. Sue is an independent investigative journalist who has quickly become a leading authority on the William Sascha Riley story. Sue's accounts have been blowing up on social media as of late because the entire world, it seems, wants to hear about what she has learned. I am certainly no different in that regard, so I am very excited to have the opportunity to speak with Sue today. Sue, welcome to Policy Watch.
Thank you so much for having me, Art. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sue, it seems to me that you have completely immersed yourself into the Sascha Riley story. What drove you to become not just interested in, but so invested in this story?
I first came across this story on January 12th on Substack. And as I started listening, I was very compelled by the testimony. And I think what really stood out, what really resonated with me personally, is Sascha's story of being in this world because he was adopted into it. As someone who was also adopted in the 70s, I realized that that very easily could have been my story. And so it just hit close to home. And I'm level 1 autistic, and part of my autism is a strong sense of social justice and justice in general. So when I come across stories where justice has not been served, I feel compelled to learn more about it and to do what I can to help make sure that all the parties are held accountable.
You know, when you mention that, I can't help but wonder if I too am level 1 autistic. I'm sure I'm on the spectrum. I share with you that incredible sense of justice, that compulsion to ensure that fairness is achieved, that justice is done. So let me ask you, how did you get started in investigative journalism? Was this your first foray into this kind of endeavor?
As far as journalism goes, this is my first foray, but I have written 4 books, and one of my books in particular, Pressing Pause, P-A-W-S, is I spent a lot of time researching in that. I went through over 100 different peer-reviewed articles as part of the research process of preparing that book. And so I'm a jumper-inner, I guess you could say. And so when I get passionate about something, my hyper-focus kicks into drive. And so I just, with the Sascha story, I just started digging in and wanted to see, what was verifiable of the things that were discussed. But I think just research in general for me is kind of built into my blood. I have 2 master's degrees. And so I think that I love learning. And for me, research is just a new way of learning about a new topic. So that was really kind of what spurred me in this particular case. But what's been interesting is because I've been successful in finding a lot of information, I've actually had somebody reach out to me yesterday and offer me a job as a reporter. I would have to move for that, and I don't think I'm ready to do that right now. But I would love to make a living out of this, or to become a survivor advocate going forward.
Well, Sue, you certainly do a great job at investigative journalism. And personally, I have no doubt that you will end up transitioning into journalism as your full-time gig in the not so distant future. Which brings me to my next question. As you were conducting your research and investigation, was there a moment when your heart kind of leapt out of your chest and you thought, holy cow, this is real. This person is real. I'm onto something.
Well, as odd as it sounds, of all of the different pieces of evidence I've been able to uncover, the one that really made it hit home that this is not an internet hoax that's maybe been perpetrated since 2021 or something was finding a traffic ticket for Sascha from the 90s. For me, that was like, okay, well, this is clearly a real person that, you know, enjoys speeding like we all do sometimes. Um, and so I knew at that point that this person was real, a legitimate person. And so I really started digging in. And one of the things that kind of stopped me in my tracks, I guess, in my research was finding out that Sasha's dad is has also been a sheriff in the past, and to know that someone that's done these types of things and has access to being in the police department or in the sheriff's department, as well as a private investigator's license and a concealed carry permit, to me, it paints a very dangerous picture of this person who is still alive and free.
As I was going through the evidence that you've collected, I remember a huge moment for me was coming across your correspondence with Michael Bayless. He served as Sasha Riley's first sergeant
Correct.
at Fort Carson. When he said, I was in the room, I was in the room when the commanding officer asked Sasha whether they were in a film as a child. How did it feel when you first read that?
Well, it was clearly confirmation that I was on the right track and that Sasha's story is true. And at least the parts we've been able to verify, we know are true. So that, first of all, the fact that that Bayless wrote back to me, I was really, really pleasantly surprised. He didn't have to. Most of the other people I've reached out to have just chosen not to respond. But he wrote back and confirmed the story, as far as the military portion of the story. So to me, that was just more evidence that I'm on the right track and I need to keep going. And what I thought was most interesting about that interaction, apart from him confirming the existence of this conversation, was the fact that the only other person who had reached out to him at that point was Jordan Lyles from Snopes. And at this point, the time I reached out to him, it was probably like 2 or 3 days after I'd heard the story. And it was well known by this point online. It had gone viral. So I found it really interesting that I was only the second person to reach out to him, given that his name was identified, spelled, and is a unique spelling. So to me, it makes me question the tenacity of other journalists who are pursuing this story.
Which, to my mind, begs the question, are there any other journalists who are pursuing this story? Why do you suppose you have been able to track down and gather so much evidence to corroborate Sasha Riley's story when virtually nobody else has?
Well, that's the question for the ages, isn't it? I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's because for me as a science teacher of 2 decades, I work through evidence. And so if I hear something that sounds unbelievable, I will check to verify whether it's true or not true. I think a lot of people, not necessarily the media in this case, I can't speak for them, but a lot of people who are finding it difficult to believe Sasha's story is because it's so, the accusations are so intense and traumatic, and the things that Sasha went through are things that we don't, as humans, want to imagine any other human ever having to go through, let alone a child. So for me, I'm just driven to find out the truth of this entire story, and so far, I haven't found a lie.
Well, Sue, I have read that very sentiment probably dozens, I don't know, maybe hundreds of times on comments on the videos that I've been producing on this topic, which I of course, owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to you for doing all the legwork, all the research, all the investigation. I read that comment all the time. People say, I don't want to believe this. I don't want to believe any of this. But Sascha Riley is so believable. Sascha comes across as so credible and such a compelling witness. But on top of what we've heard from William Sascha Riley, you're now getting a lot of information, tips, insight from a great variety of people out there who are reaching out to you, getting in touch about information they know about Sascha Riley's story or related stories, related circumstances. I wouldn't expect that you could share a lot of that information just yet, but how helpful has that been for you, the fact that so many people are reaching out to you?
I mean, it's been tremendous. Part of my problem is just keeping everything organized. Right now, I'm spread across like 5 platforms. And so just trying to keep track of where the different tips are coming in and going back to find them when I'm looking for them later. But it's been incredible. I had somebody who reached out to me who was stationed at Fort Carson, who actually had to clean out the locker of one of the people who was arrested for CSAM materials. So there's just a lot of people connected, tangentially or more specifically. So it's been incredible. I've had, everybody has their own special interests. And so I have one person who just dove deep into Irene, who was Sascha's first adoptive mom. So she went and found all of her marriage and divorce records and where she lives now and just all of this pictures of her from high school. So the fact that there are so many people interested in this and people want to help but don't necessarily have one place to collect everything, I feel like at this point I've done a lot of research myself, but a lot of it is just that my Substack is the repository for the information that all of these people have collected and sent in together. So it's kind of a more modern day version of the documentary Don't F with Cats, but I guess this one would be Don't F with Puppies.
So Sue, this uncomfortably makes me think about what has just happened to Don Lemon and Georgia Fort last night. You are now kind of a leading authority on William Sascha Riley, and you're essentially a central repository for a lot of information that's not public. Does that give you some pause? Are you fearful at all now that you've heard about what's happened to Don Lemon and Georgia Fort just late last night? As a matter of fact, I have a video of that event of agents coming to Georgia Fort's home. Have you seen that video?
I have not had a chance to see that yet because I've been sick this morning and I've been running around doing things. I did hear about both of them being arrested, and but I would love to see the video.
Well, let's take a look at it right now. I can't help but think of this particular scene when I look at you right now because of the big window behind you, and I think you'll see why this video makes me think of that.
Okay, well, this is really scary. There's kids in the house. You guys have not been really friendly in the community. And to me, this seems a little, can I finish, sir? Can I finish? Can I finish?
Get your phone.
This seems a little bit aggressive to have all these cars in our cul-de-sac, 2, 3 agents, and now I saw the one disappear to the back. So to me, this is a little aggressive to just serve a warrant. Slide the warrant. Let me see the warrant.
I don't want to be seen as being alarmist. I don't want to invoke or inspire any panic in you, but what goes through your mind when you see this happening to other journalists in the United States of America?
Well, it's terrifying. As a German major in college, I spent a lot of time looking at German history and literature and um, post World War II, learning how to deal with the past. And what I see happening right now is late 1930s Germany. We're seeing the attack on the freedom of the press, First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights are all being violated right now. We've all seen that in various ways in the last week. So to me, if they want to come in, where is this window? If they want to come in this window, I know my legal rights. And so I will also ask to see their warrant. And honestly, if they're pursuing me, I just know I'm on the right track.
Well, like you, Sue, this absolutely reminds me of the regime we saw in Germany in the 1930s. And like you, that's part of what drives me. I accept that I'm putting myself at some risk dealing with the content that I happen to be dealing with, the same kind of content that you're pursuing. The way I look at it is, yeah, there is some risk. But if nobody does anything, then we are guaranteed to face the consequences. So it's basically risk of possible negative consequences compared to a guarantee of negative consequences. So that's what I tell myself when I start to question what I'm doing, and when I start to think, oh, maybe I should be a little more quiet. Maybe I should just sit down. Yeah, I don't think any of us can stop at this point in time. Which reminds me, final question for you. Do you have a sense of where you're going from here in your investigation of the William Sascha Riley story?
Yesterday, Lisa Bolding, who was the one who wrote the article about Sascha, just released a statement that she has filed a case with the United Nations regarding this. And so now they have a place where they can take witness testimony, anything else, any other evidence that relates to this or connected cases. So I have been working with Lisa on trying to see what I can do to help in next steps. Right now, a lot of what we're waiting on are FOIA requests and trying to track down documents that were from the 80s from places that no longer exist. So we're kind of, I'm personally at kind of a sticking point right now. But what I'm doing is I'm working with some other survivors as well on some related cases. So one of the people whose story has come out fairly recently is George B. Tonks, who was a Wexner victim or survivor from the 80s, early 80s, and 70s. And so he's coming out confronting Wexner's people, and so I'm doing a little deep dive into his case as well, and trying to collect some evidence the way I've done with Sascha's case to help support George in his case as well.
Wow, you're pretty busy. So I don't know how you possibly manage all of this, but you're doing it. You're doing a great job. You're having a huge impact. In my view, you have single-handedly changed the narrative around the William Sascha Riley story. It essentially, with your post, with your gathering and curating all of this corroborating evidence, it's changed the discussion from, well, does Sascha Riley even exist, to, okay, Sascha Riley exists. Now let's talk about the allegations. And you have single-handedly done that, and in a rather short period of time. So you are certainly to be commended for that.
Well, thank you very much. I couldn't have done it without all the support of the other people who've been working with me. I've got so many different chats going with people, and It's been incredible. It's helped me connect with some other Epstein survivors. I'll be doing a podcast with Anushka DeGiorgio next week. And so I think the more that we can raise awareness around this topic in general and start to really figure out who these key players are, what their connections are currently, and making sure that we are stopping this from going forward in this time.
It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, Sue. Thank you for everything you've been doing. And thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. And I really look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been speaking with Sue Selle, an independent investigative journalist who has quickly become a leading authority on the William Sascha Riley story. You can find Sue on Instagram and on Substack under Buster Talks. And you can find her on YouTube at Justice4Sascha. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.